Okay, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Clay Norton. I'm the Vice President of the Montevallo Historical Society. Glad to have you all with us here today. We have a special guest, Tingle, who's going to be speaking with us. And so I'm just going to give a little introduction about him and why he's so special to this community. And then we'll let him take you on a slideshow through the carvings that he has in Orr Park. And then when he's done with that, then I'll have a few little announcements of things I want to point out at the end of his program. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm sure most of us know about Tanglewood, the festival. It's named after the trail of carvings that Tim has done over the years in Orr Park. And it was called the trail was called Tanglewood before the festival was ever dreamed up. And this past year was the 5th anniversary of the festival. And the report I got right after the festival was that it attracted 6,000 people to the park that day, which is phenomenal to me. And last year was the first year I'd ever been to it, and I was just blown over by, number one, how unique it is to begin with, and then just the fascination by the people who attended it with everything that was going on. This is one of the signs that was up around town advertising it, and the festival is put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and they do a great job not only of organizing and conducting the festival, but promoting it ahead of time. And so they are to be congratulated for a lot of the success of the festival. I'm going to turn this slide over here so we can see a little better. Does that help? These are pictures that just kind of give you a sense of the nature of Orr Park, and I must point out that the namesake for the park, Dr. Milton L. Orr Jr., his daughter is with us today, Sissy, who is one of our members. Glad to have you with us today. This just gives you a sense of the beauty of this location, and you may not be aware of this, but this particular spot near the big spring has been a public gathering place since 1853. There was, as far as I know, the first really big celebration that occurred here was to mark the date when the railroad from Selma was completed in Montevallo, and they had a big statewide celebration, and you can still find the coverage of that in the Montgomery Advertiser archives about what a big day it was and all the barbecue and everything that went on then. So our park here has been there and been in constant use almost ever since. This is the old swimming hole that used to be used by the kids in town. Another view. You're seeing some of Tanglewood over there with the pathways and everything, and the Tim's carvings are all through here on all these dead cedar trees that just dot the whole trail area over there. It's so unique to me to see these gigantic cedar trees that grew up there, that they've seen better days in terms of being alive and everything, but there are just so many of them, and Tim realized what a treasure that was, and has turned them into something really special for this community. Another view of the creek and the trails. This is just gives you an idea of what it's like when people show up for the festival. There's all kinds of vendors and lots of shade to. Now, I was impressed with the number of food vendors too that were there this past year. It was good food too. Now, one aspect of Tanglewood is that Tim's work as a carver, as a wood carver, has inspired a carving contest that is held at the festival. These are people from all over the place, out of state, everything, who come and they carve, make special carvings using primarily chainsaws, which is pretty interesting, not to mention loud. That gives you an idea of the kind of work that they're producing.
Another thing to mention is that
Okay.
the Tanglewood Festival is an all woodworking show.
Right.
All the vendors have to make their products out of wood or some kind of natural materials.
So there's one in process right there. And this is a photo of Tim and his family that appeared in the November 2023 issue of Chamber Chat. And there was a little bit of coverage there. I thought I would read to you what the Chamber Chatter had to say about this particular experience for his family. This past September, the city of Montevallo celebrated the 5th annual Tanglewood Art Festival, where woodcarvers from all over the world came together to sell their wares, celebrate the art form. The Montevallo City Council decided to take a moment on Monday, October 9, 2023, to celebrate Tim Tingle and his contributions to the community at their regular scheduled meeting. They presented Tingle with an official proclamation and a wooden plaque commemorating his work and contributions to the city of Montevallo. The plaque reads, Tim Tingle, in recognition of 30 years of carving in Orr Park and in appreciation of you giving your talent to all who walk Park's trail. In gratitude for your continued commitment to bringing delight to all who visit Tanglewood. The proclamation was meant to surprise Tim, and the city council meeting was attended by Tingle's family, including his children and grandchildren. To conclude the presentation, Montevallo Mayor Rusty Nix made the following statement about Tim and his accomplishments. No value can be placed on what this one man has done to bring such delight to the community and to all the folks that come here from far and wide to see his creations. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tim, let him walk you through the slideshow, and I'm sure he will take questions as he's making progress. So Tim, thanks for being with us.
Okay, thank you. Let me say right from the start, I just had a stroke back in October, and so if my voice gives out, it's because cold weather, my voice kind of slurs together. But anyway, my profession was a coal miner, and I worked for 37 years in underground coal mines. And during those years, I was also a wood carver. That was my hobby. In February of '93, they had a freeze. Y'all probably remember that. Freeze.
March of '93.
Huh?
It was March of '93.
Was February. Ignore the lady sitting in the corner. Well, some of the first carvings were dated from March, but the ice storm was actually in February, I thought. Okay, it was in
March of '93.
Okay, March '93, we had an ice storm. And because the cedar trees, catch the ice more than the other trees that didn't have any leaves on them, it broke down a lot of the cedar trees. And being I was a wood carver, I thought, hey, maybe they'll let me have some of that wood to carve. And, so I went over in the park while the city crews were cleaning up the cedar trees, and I asked them, if I help y'all clean this up, can I have a few logs? And they said, well, they didn't know. They said, well, the land was donated, and they didn't, specification was made that no one was to get the trees off of it, which it didn't make any sense to me. If they're gonna throw it away, I didn't see why I couldn't carve on it. But they said they didn't want to take responsibility for it, so they told me to go see City Hall. I said, okay. So instead of going to City Hall, I went up on the hill and watched them. When they got through working, I got my tools and I went down into the park and I carved a horse head out of a little stump that was left from one of the trees that broke off. And it wasn't a very good horse head, but it was a start, The next day, nobody said anything about it. I figured they'd cut this horse head off, throw it away too. But it was still there the next day. And a couple of days later, after they got through cleaning the park up, I thought, let me push this a little further. There was a standing tree that had a dead side to it, so I went in, I carved a face. And, I don't name my carvings, but later everybody started calling him Einstein because he had a kind of sleepy, absent look, So I carved that one, I left it in the park. And the people that were going to the park to walk every day, of course, took notice of it, and they reported back to other people, and before long, there was a crowd of people coming to the park every day to see if they could find more carvings. Now, this park had just been donated to the city the year before. And so all the area under the trees at the time still had privets and sawtooth briars. You couldn't just walk through it. It was a kind of tangled mess. And so when people started finding the tree carvings, they started tromping through the woods, through all these bushes and stuff, looking for carvings. And the city decided to clean it up so that people wouldn't be getting snake bit and, stuff like that. But I'm sure they would have done it anyway, but because of the carvings, it prompted them to do it sooner than they would have. Now I noticed that from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock every morning, there was nobody in the park. And so that was the hours I would go back to the park and do my work. I'd work for a couple hours a day, and then I would leave. I'd come back next day and finish it. I told you I was a coal miner. During this time, I'd been laid off about a year, so I had plenty of time. So I, idle mind, So I kept coming back, and I tried to stay anonymous. I didn't want anyone to see me carving because I wanted to stay anonymous, for whatever reason. But I did 2, then I did 3, and I did 4, and it was starting to create a buzz around Montevallo. People were flocking to the park every day to find a new carving. And they would follow the trail of chips till they found the new one, the latest one, At some point, somebody came to me and said, Mr. Tingle, do you know who's doing the carving in this park? And I said, well, all I can tell you is what I've heard other people say. I think it's some elves that come out at night. And so I kept doing it, and I did the 5th one. And after I finished the 6th one, I got caught. I think it was Miss Legg off the Chamber of Commerce. She arrived in the park early to do her jogging or walking, and she caught me. She said, "It's you!" And I said, "Urgh." I threw my tools in the bag, and I went home, and I locked the door, and I turned the lights out, and I waited on the police to come get me. Because I figured, I'm defacing the city property, Well, later that day, I don't know if it was the mayor or who it was. Someone from the mayor's office called me And they said, Mr. Tingle, you know you didn't have permissions to, and I quote, hack on, the city's trees over there. But, the city council, they've looked at them and they decided that they like your work. And so, instead of prosecuting you, we're gonna let you go do some more if you want to. They said just two things. Don't carve on the live wood, and don't carve anything that's objectionable. No pornography. I said, well, okay, I can handle that. So, well, right after they called me back to work, so I didn't have time to carve anymore anyway. The next year I came back and carved another one. And then the year after that I did 2 more. And over the next 4 years or so, I'd done about 14, total of 14 carvings. And also by that time, the internet becoming the problem. The internet had come in, and people were taking pictures of these trees, and the pictures were going all over the world by way of the internet. And so people all over the country were hearing about these carvings in the park. And so more and more people were coming to the park. It kind of put Montevallo on the map. And let's see, in '97, I think, the city council met again, and they decided we're going to have to compensate Mr. Tingle for the work he's been doing in the park. Because I hadn't been charging anything. I just like for people to see my artwork. I was putting it out there for anybody to enjoy, and wasn't expecting anything in return. But they voted not to pay me, but to change the name of that grove of trees in the park. They changed it to Tinglewood. So that's how the name Tinglewood came about. And from that's where they got the name for the festival. So we have the Tinglewood Festival now. Yeah, so I continued doing the carvings after that. Unabated, I just continued doing like 2 or 3 a year. Now right now there's 53 carvings in the park. At one time there was as many as 62, but the storms have broke down a lot of the trees that I carved. In fact, a couple of years ago, the big tree that had the unicorn on it, a storm blew it down, and I got over with a chainsaw and trimmed it up, and the city said they would help me stand it up and cement it back in the ground. Before that could happen, though, we had a flood, and the unicorn went down the creek. So if you go walking down the creek, you might find a unicorn. It's so big you won't be able to get it out, though. It's a pretty big log. But anyway, that's how the name came about. And so I guess I just click through it here and show you some of them. I would assume that everybody, if all y'all are from the Montevallo area, that y'all had already seen these. But I met somebody in the park the other day that lives in Montevallo and said he's never even heard of them. So, never know. Let's see. See if I can figure out how to use this. Okay. Yeah, the first year I did 6 carvings, and the next year I did this one. It was a full-size Indian, and there's the wizard. Now I don't name any of these carvings. I just carve them and put them out there, and other people that visit the park will name them. They named him early, just because he's a wizard. Oh, by the way, see the roots on this thing? The roots are like out of the ground. When that cedar tree started growing, there was a mound of dirt across there that the cedar tree was growing out of. Over the years, that mound has eroded down, but that mound was on the side of an old road, old road bed. It was the old Montevallo to, Selma Road used to go through the park. And it was right beside where this tree is. I was showing, I was showing you the other day, that road, yeah. But, that's why that tree's roots are exposed like that. Let's see, there's people call this guy Osama Bad Hair Day. He kind of looked like Osama bin Laden, but he had his roots up in there. After they killed him finally, I started to take a drill to drill in his forehead there. I figured that'd be in bad taste. Let's see. Okay, here's the one on the left here. That's the one they call Einstein. He's got a sleepy, absent look. That was, aside from the horse head, that was the first upright carving I've done. A few years later, I noticed the tree on the right side was dead, so I carved it also. Made a companion for him. Oh, there's a dragon. A college girl told me, said, hey, you need a dragon in the park. And I thought, wow, where am I going to find a tree big enough to carve a dragon on? And got to looking around and found this upright dragon. Now look here, see his nostrils? Those are two limbs. There was two limbs actually coming out of those nostrils there. I cut the limbs off and left the knots where the nostrils came from. That's where I started carving him. I carved the head from the nostrils and then carved the rest of it on the way down. That's about 12 feet tall, by the way. And I guess that's my favorite carving of all of them. Let's see, there. Well, that's not a very good one. There's one on this side and one on the other side. You can barely see the ears from the other one. There's the other carving you can see from the other side. Let's see. There's Big Bird. This was a log I found floating in the creek. Got some kids were swimming in the creek, and I said, hey, let me drag this log out. So we drug it out, got it on the creek bank, and about 3 hours I carved the beak and the face on it, and later I cemented it in the ground. Here's the lion. I was intended on doing a Wizard of Oz scene here. I got the lion, and then on the back side there's a knot. It would make a good Tin Man. Head for the Tin Man. And then I put Dorothy with Toto on the other side, but I never got around to all that. Let's see. This guy's kind of sad shape here. I started carving him. I found out there was a rotten spot in his eye there, so yeah. Some work out, some work, some don't. Hey, they don't pay me for it, they get what they get. This guy, he looks a lot better now. Oh, excuse me, wrong button. I carved him. He's got barbed wire still embedded in the tree. I just carved 2 eyes and a mouth, and the nose was already there. That was a burl. And fresh carved didn't look that good, but after it faded to gray, it looks a lot better now. Let's see. Next. Oh, y'all recognize this guy? Phil Hurst claims that I carved this of him. And it does. You stand him beside the tree, it looks just like him. But see the mouth there, I went to Rome, Italy one time, and there was this big round stone that had a face on it, and the mouth was open like that. And it was called the, what was the name of it?
Oracle of Truth.
Oracle of Truth. Back in those days, they believed, they believed in the gods, And so they would bring a criminal to the Oracle of Truth, and they say, okay, put your hand in the mouth. And if they had their hand in the mouth, and told a lie, it would bite their hand off. And so people were afraid to put their hand in his mouth and tell a lie, so they would get the truth. Well, this is Montevallo's oracle of truth. If you stick your hand in his mouth and tell a lie, you'll get squirrel bit, because the tree is hollow. Okay. Oh, here's the one. This is on the back side of the line. One of these days I may make that into the Tin Man. Here we go. This is an elephant. He has no ears, I know. There wasn't room for ears, but I got his trunk and his tusk, and I used some golf balls for eyes. This is just another old bearded man. Oh, here's just an owl sitting on a skull. Okay, there's nothing above that. Okay, I was trying to remember. Here's a tiki. This is kind of like the Easter Island statues. This is one of the few carvings in the park that's not carved out of cedar. This one is made out of this is a heartwood from a black walnut tree that's been standing there for 50 years. And I don't know how much longer it'll be there. It's starting to deteriorate already. Okay, there's let me explain about this little carving here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but he has a big open mouth right here. When I carved it, I left the burrow for his nose and then a little tuft of hair right here. When I started carving this tree, I noticed a bunch of big black carpenter ants crawling all around the tree, and they didn't hurt anything. You know, they climb on me. They wouldn't bite or anything though. I sat down in front of the tree and I started carving out the mouth, about that big, you know. As I got deeper into the tree, I started finding tunnels that the ants had made, and I started finding eggs. The ants were hauling their eggs away from the danger area, you know. And by that time I had 200 ants crawling all over, but they weren't biting me. Well, all of a sudden, the queen gave the signal. She gave out a scent or something that was their signal. And all in the same instant, every ant that was on me clamped down on me with their pinchers. And I jumped up and I was slapping ants and running. And, they don't sting, but they can pinch you pretty bad. So I didn't finish his mouth. I left him as is. Oh, and another thing about this, I forgot to tell you, this sea's black, his face is blackened. One Halloween a couple years ago, somebody stuffed his mouth full of paper bags and plastic, and they lit it. They were trying to burn the tree down. And it didn't go very far. It went a little ways, and it just blackened his face, but it didn't burn the tree down. That's one of the few cases of vandalism that I've had there. Oh, this guy, this is the last one I've done in the park. He's about head high. Yeah, this is the last one I did in the park here. I did one after I did this one, I did one down in Auburn. They hired me to go to Auburn. Every year they have an art appreciation day in Auburn. They get the fifth graders from the 5 local middle schools. And every day they bring a different school in. And they'll have a woodcarver, a basket weaver, or different artists and different things. The kids will rotate and learn something about each craft. And I was the one they had for a woodcarver. And they would come around to me, and I'd tell them a little about how to carve wood. And then I would give them the hammer, the mallet, and the chisel, and I'd let them carve off a piece of wood. You do that for 5 classes every day, that's about 1,500 kids in the course of the week. But at the end of the week, I had a carving just about like this one. And all the kids could say in later years, hey, I helped carve that. So that's something to have every year. Let's see, next one. Oh, this is one of those first 6 I did. I think this is the 3rd one I did that first year. But storm blew it over. And I didn't want to lose the tree, so I cut off the bottom and the top, and the city got with me and we cemented it back to the ground. Makes a good home for squirrels because it's completely hollow. Here's one with it's got a squirrel on his head, and some people think that's his tongue, but it's not, it's a frog. He got a frog in his throat. If you look on his bottom lip, you can see the fingers where you're grabbing hold of the bottom lip. And see, all these trees I carve, I have to have dead wood to carve them. This tree right here, it's got live wood on this side and live wood on this side, but there was a streak of dead wood right down the middle of them. And that's the only thing I carved, was the dead wood. Okay, here's this has got a story behind it here. This is a totem pole. You can't quite see the eagle. He's standing on the back of a turtle and flowers and a ram. But anyway, this whole side of the tree is dead. The reason that whole side of the tree is dead is because right there where the gazebo is now, there used to be a scout house. The house before the one they got down. And years ago, I remember the scout house, the roof was rotten and was falling in. And one time the mayor got with the city council and said, look, all you men don't plan anything for Saturday because we're all going to go down to the park and disassemble the old scout house. And apparently some of the men had something planned for Saturday. They didn't want their Saturday to be used up in the park. So Friday night, the scout house mysteriously burnt to the ground. And when it did burn to the ground, this side of the tree was blistered so bad that it killed the cambium layer of the bank of the bark. And that's how I was able to use this tree to carve a totem pole. Let's see what. Okay, this one. Yeah, Miss Legg, the person who caught me. Later on, I was carving this tree right here, and I had the face carved, but I hadn't carved the mouth yet. She came by and she stopped. She said, "Tim, you need to carve some smiley faces. I'm tired of all these old snarling faces that scare the kids." He said, "Make me a smiley face." So I did. I carved a smiley face. Teeth this big. And I got back and looked at it, and I thought, well, it needs to have so I knocked the tooth out right there. And I think it scares kids worse than any of them. Okay, here's one I did for the bicentennial celebration. That's the fountain right behind it there. It's that big dead tree there. I just carved the bicentennial logo on it. That's supposed to be a squirrel. That was one of my first. There's an old man he's got a cane in his hand right there. It looks like he's trying to push his way out of the tree though. Let's see. Oh, there's one. This was a totally live tree I wasn't able to carve, but then the storm, the top of the tree branched off in like 3 parts, and so the side that was facing the west, the wind blew it off and it split the bark all the way down to the ground. And so I had a whole tree here I could use. So I carved a big face. Look at the crown on his head. The crown is made up of 3 owls. People have asked me, why'd you do that? I don't know. And there's where he is. There's a guy, he's asleep. Oh, I like this one. This is one tree, by the way, there's a crack in the middle. And for years, there was a hive of honeybees that lived inside this tree. And every day you walk by it and you see bees just buzzing all around the tree. And in the summertime, there'd be so much honey inside the tree that the bees would actually be all around the outside of that hole there. And like I say, they were there for years. Then one time, some kid I guess messed with him, and he stirred them up and they stung him. And so the city had to exterminate the bees. Well, as soon as they exterminated the bees, I went over and looked at the tree, realized this was dead right here. And so I carved the face, and in the process I realized it was dead on the other side too. So I carved a mirror image. I just, and why I had them with the tongue out, I don't know. I've always kind of hoped that another hive of bees would move back in this tree. That way they'd be bees all over his face, you know, on the tongue and everything. But this is one of them I like. Okay, that's can't see it too well because of the sunlight, but this is a llama. I went to Peru and I came back with llamas on my mind. There's the head of the llama, and here's the little head of supposed to be a baby llama standing between its legs, but everybody that sees it says, why does that llama have a mountain lion standing between its legs? I don't know, it's just the way it is. There's just another face. Right below this is where there's another. You see the one I showed you where somebody tried to burn it? It's on the other back side on the bottom here. When they lit a fire in the bottom, it was obvious there was flames coming out this guy's mouth because it was a hollow spot. Let's see. Okay, it was a totally live tree until a storm broke the top out of it. And when it broke the top out, I thought, wow, that's good. I can carve something out of this. But I started carving it and I realized it was too hollow to put any detail much. And so I just did what I could. I made the mouth and a few teeth and put some nostrils and used golf balls for eyes. And he became a booger. And everybody likes this guy. Smiley face. It's over on the north side of the park. Used golf balls for the eyes. I went through a spell there where I put golf balls in a lot of. This tree I couldn't carve because it's not dead or anything. So, there's another one. Let's see. Let me get my clicker right. Yeah. So I just drilled into the tree and I put golf balls with eyeballs, for eyeballs. They got a burl for the nose and two eyes. The same tree has got 4 of them all around it. Here's that tree I was showing you a while ago. There's a face on the other side, and this side has got everybody calls him Batman because he's got big bat-like ears. There's Mother Nature. This is the top of the tree that was cut off of the one at the fountain. At the fountain, there's a big dead cedar tree there. They cut this chunk of wood off the top of that, and I carried it to the other end of the park, and I went in and cemented the log in the ground. But then, because I was working 7 days a week, I wasn't able to come back and carve it for a while. In fact, it was several months before I could get back to it. During that time, the people walking in the park said, "What is it? What's that supposed to be?" Finally, they came to the conclusion, it must be modern art. So about the time they decided it was modern art, I got time to carve it, and it became one that everybody calls Mother Nature. Oh, there's the back side of it. She got a basket on her back with all this fruit and stuff in it. There's a pumpkin and grapes and squash, and I think there's even a rat in there somewhere. Yeah, rat's head right there. She's holding on to the hand of a little girl behind her here. Little girl's got a bullfrog under her arm. On the front side, let's see if it'll go back to the front. Yeah, the front side, there's a little boy sucking on his thumb. Anyway, I really didn't finish this carving. I ran out of time. I worked so much. I did good because to get this far on it. When I was working on it, a woman came walking around the park. She had a small boy and girl with her. I don't even know what her name was. I asked her, would you like to be a model for the face of this statue right here? She said, sure. So she stood there, and while she was standing there modeling, she got her cell phone out. She called her ex-husband. She said, guess what? Somebody thinks I'm pretty. He's carving a statue of me. But anyway, never really finished her. The eyes are not really finished, but you know, you can tell what it's supposed to be. That's the back side. Yeah, this is the back side of one of the other carvings. I carved a big sunflower. See, it's a sunflower here, but then you follow the roots down and you see where it's growing from. The roots are coming out the eye sockets of this face, which is kind of disturbing. Here it is over here. Anyway, people ask me, why'd you do that? I don't know. This is a beetle. It's one of the trees that it died in the park, and the city came over there to cut it down. They cut it mostly down, and right before they cut it off at the ground, they said, whoa, wait a minute, maybe Mr. Tingle can probably use this. So they left it. Yeah. Could have done a lot more if they'd left more of it. This was a totally dead tree, so I was able to use the whole thing. I made the mistake of telling some people when I was starting it that I was going to carve an elephant with, this was his head. I'd have the ears right here, and this was his trunk raised. Well, when I started working on it, I changed my mind. I decided to make a big old fish swallowing a snake. And so, that's what I did. And for months after that, people would come up and they'd tell me how much they like it, but then they said, but it don't look like an elephant. But it don't look like it don't look like an elephant. I said, well, it kind of changed. This one was supposed to be a tribute to my uncle who was a cowboy, and I never really finished it. I needed the city to come and cut the tree off about 8 foot up, because I know if I finished the carving, it would be so weak at the bottom where the carving was that the wind would blow it over, it'd break off. So I kind of waited for the city to cut it off at 8 foot tall, but so far they haven't done it. There's a lot of nails in this tree. See this stain right here? That's coming from a nail that's embedded in his nose. And there was several nails in his body. Okay,
Tim, the next few are of trees that don't have carvings. And when I was taking these pictures and walking through the park, I realized I'd come to these trees that didn't have carvings, but I could almost see where you get your inspiration to put something in there. So as you click through these are just trees without carvings, but you can see their potential. Yeah,
there's potential. All the twists and turns. I like cedar because there's always interesting knots and twists and turns in it. This one has a carving on it though. It's got the wizard on one side. See, there's the wizard's face. But it's kind of interesting. The wood grain is always interesting. And I could probably do something with some of that. And a lot of these trees are still alive, and so I can't really carve them until the tree dies, and it probably outlived me. Oh,
That's something that you can just back it up for a
Okay.
minute. That's basically the slideshow, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, there's a lot of things I haven't explained, and so, you know, if anybody's got any questions, now's the time to ask.
Is it all done with a chainsaw, or do you use a
I
chisel?
do virtually none of it with a chainsaw.
Oh,
Unless there's a big chunk I know I'm not gonna use it all, I just use chisel and mallet to shape everything. I know it takes longer to do that, but, I use chainsaw and I mess up, I cut too deep, you know. It's better if I just use a chisel and mallet. I like the way the chisel, but I like the way the wood peels over when I carve it with the chisel. It's more fun for me if I use a chisel and mallet. I guess that's the best way to do it. But if it's a big chunk, or, you know, if it's a big rock spot, I'll take chainsaw and cut that off, you know. If I know I'm not gonna use any of it. I'm not a chainsaw carver. Every time I see somebody's chainsaw carving, I wanna get my tools and finish it. It looks unfinished. You know, it's got the rough, rugged texture to it, but some people like that though.
Well, I think the reason I asked that question is, some people say it's this guy did all this with a chainsaw.
Oh.
They obviously hadn't seen your work, and I haven't either.
Yeah, well, if you look at it, you know, you don't see the rough texture on mine. I like the chisel texture. You know, it looks better to me, but, you know, that's just me. If I used chainsaw and grinders, it would make dust, and I'm a former coal miner. I got out of the mines without black lung. I don't want to get red lung, you know, from breathing dust. And let me say this also, I know a lot of wood carvers that are better than I am. My talent is not as good as a lot of these other wood carvers I've seen. I've seen people carve a wolf head that's so realistic you wouldn't know it from a real wolf. I'm not that kind of a carver. I'm kind of a caricature carver, I guess. But that's what I am. I didn't start off doing this to get famous. You know, if anything, I tried to stay anonymous.
What age did you start carving?
What, excuse me?
What age?
What age? Well, let's see, that was 31 years ago. I'm 65 now. So I was about 31 or so when I
Did
started.
your father, grandfather, anybody? do
No,
woodwork?
nobody in my family was a wood carver. So everybody's wondering, where'd you get it from? I said, I just developed it on my own. It's something I wanted to do, and I started doing it, I wasn't that good at it. You know, I could hardly make a human face that looked like a human face, but I keep doing it over and over, and I get better at it. You know, I tell that to anybody. If they want to do something, just keep doing it, and you'll get better at it. But like I said, my carvings are not nearly as good as carvings I've seen other people do. The reason they got to be famous was because I did them for free. I put them in the park for free. And people thought that was amazing. I would just donate that much time doing this and get nothing back. But I get a lot back. I get satisfaction of having these trees out where people can see them. Okay?
So I've read one of your books and enjoyed it thoroughly, and I've seen your display down at Tinglewood when you were selling golf balls and carvings and such. Do you have a web page or a website where you market
Oh, no, I don't sell them over the website. People have told me if I put my golf balls out there, I would sell, probably 1,000 a day. Well, my goodness, I'm retired, I don't wanna carve myself to death. I mean, I gotta have something to carry to the next show. And I enjoy going to shows and talking to people. It's not all about just selling stuff. If it was all about selling stuff, I could probably get rich at it, but that's not what it's all about. I just like, interacting with people. And we're talking about my golf balls. When I retired in 16 from the mines, everybody told me I should start selling my golf balls. See, I was carving golf balls and giving them away to people at the mines. And when I retired, they said, hey, you could probably make a living doing that. And so, I carved a few to start with, and I got more as it went on. Well, now I've got a display table that holds 1,080 golf balls. And there's 390 something different things I carve. One thing I carved is a turtle, dogs, cats, just all kinds of animals. And then team logos. I think I've done every sports team in the United States, all the Division I schools. I've got team logos on all those. And they sell pretty well. I sell them for $15 a piece, and a lot of times I'll go to a show and sell 100 golf balls at one show. Then I also make miniature tree carvings, about this big. They're similar to the ones in the park, but they're just, smaller versions. And I usually sell them for anywhere from $15 to $60, depending on how elaborate they are. But that's what I do now, after my coal mining career. I thought I'd have more time to work on my tree carvings in the park, but now all my time is used going, preparing my craft to go to these different shows. And we were doing like 36 shows a year. I mean, we go all over Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee, and Georgia. There's a lot of good shows all over the country. Now, I found out that I'm probably the only golf ball carver in the Southeast. I've seen nobody else doing it anywhere. I did meet some people from Canada who carve golf balls. They do it up there in the wintertime because they're snowbound. They got nothing else to do. But it's kind of fun, or I wouldn't do it. All right, question?
I've read your book, I've seen the
good.
trees, I own one of your miniatures, but hearing you talk about it is priceless.
Oh, well, thank
It
you.
really is.
Thank you. I enjoy what I do, and, because of this stroke I've had a few months ago, it slowed me down. It scared me, and I thought that I'll never be able to carve again. I mean, I got down to a point in my life where that was all I was doing was carving. And when I couldn't use my arm and my leg, I started trying to teach myself how to carve with the left hand. That didn't work. By the way, this morning I trimmed my beard up with some scissors. You get thinking about it, that's dangerous. With a stroke-affected hand trying to cut your beard. But I enjoy doing it. I encourage all of you to come to the Tinglewood Festival, and also to the Spring Festival we have it's always the third Saturday in April. Both the shows are held in the park, and I think we've had more attendance at the spring show, some of the spring shows, than we had at Tinglewood even. Montevallo is a town that really supports art, and it shows at the art festivals. But, is there any more questions? Okay,
How long do you think the carved trees will last?
the cedar trees?
The cedar trees,
Uh, who knows? I mean, the first ones I did were done 31 years ago, and they're still
yeah.
pretty good. You know what I found? The wood cedar doesn't rot, but you know what I found out is the worst thing that can happen to it. Well, aside from the storms, you know, I've noticed. I watched bees landing on the trees and like a wasp, and the wasp would spit out some water on the wood. It would saturate the wood, and then it would scrape the wood fiber back into a ball, and then fly off with it to build its nest. A lot of the tree carvings I did years ago, you can start to see the wood grain showing where the wasps have taken off some of the soft wood fiber and just left the hard grains. So I imagine over a long period of time, that would tend to degrade the carving. But as far as it rotting, it won't rot. Cedar will last a pretty good while out in the weather. A lot of times people will carve me, want me to do a carving in their yard, and I say, is it a cedar tree? Oh no, it's a pine tree, or it's an oak tree, or a hickory tree. I'm not going to waste my time carving anything that's not a cedar. The cedar is the only thing that'll last. And if I go through the trouble to carve something, I like for it to be there a while. So that's about all I got. You know, is there any more questions?
And carpenter bees an issue.
Carpenter bees, yeah, they'll. Well, what's worse than the carpenter bees? You know, they drill holes in it. They'll drill a hole and they'll make a tunnel and they'll put the larvae in there. And then the big woodpeckers come in there, and the woodpeckers rip the wood apart to get at the larvae. And so the carpenter bees don't hurt them so much as the woodpeckers do. I mean, I can show you some carvings in the park now where that's happened.
They took a transom out of my house.
Yeah. Yeah, they make those little traps where you can catch them, but there's not enough traps to catch them all. They're real bad in the springtime. I got a tennis racket one time and went out to my chicken house in the springtime. There were so many of those carpenter bees, you know, buzzing around, making holes in the wood in my chicken pen. I think I killed 60-something of them. And I didn't make any of them. You know, they're everywhere. Anyone think of another question? I'll answer it if I can.
Okay, great, thanks so much.